Welcome to this tutorial on how to make your suit vent. The suit vent is actually done on the back piece, and this is the back piece you see me cutting out. If you don't know how to do this, you can check my previous video on how to cut and sew a suit. I clearly explain how to do this. So after cutting out this pattern paper, I will be using this pattern paper to cut out the fabric and the lining, and we'll be joining both, and on that process of joining, we'll create our suit vent. So we've taken time to fold the slit on the back piece lining. So as you can see, both pieces of the lining have been folded together to face one position, and I'll be explaining why. So I put both linings together before folding it, and that line, the lining created, will be very useful. So the next thing we'll be doing now will be to chalk out the folding of the line of that folding. So what this actually means is I'll open one of the lining like that so I can see it clearly. Then I will use that marker to chalk on the line. So I will chalk like that from the beginning. I'm using a green marker because the lining contains green design. But just to be safe, I can also use a chalk because I want it to be visible, and for the video it has to be visible for you to see what I'm actually doing. So I'll use a chalk because I can always clean off that. So you've seen the line I created. Now I'm cutting single the line on, but I'll be cutting ½ inch before that line. So I'm not cutting on the line, I'm cutting ½ inch before that line. So that is done. Now I cut out one, but the other one will remain the same. So after cutting it out, what I will do now is to join both. And it looks funny saying join both when both are of different shape, but you will understand what I mean now. I will join from the top. Then when I get to that position, I will bend inwards and join down like that. Then after I get there, I will not bend downwards and join all through. Now on the edges, I will notch after joining. Like I said, I will join from the top downwards like that, and that's that. So for the stitching process, we start by joining both back piece from the neckline down to the slit. Then when we get to the slit position, we'll follow the direction of the slit and stop at ½ inch before the tip of the slit. As you can see, we've also added stay on the line of the slit. You can use paper stay, you can use hair stay. For me, I prefer to use paper stay, but I'm using hair stay because I just want to use hair stay all through for this particular suit. So I'm using hair stay, but you can also use paper stay for that. So as you can see, I bended just one of the back piece and the other one is straight. That's what created that slit for us like that. So in preparing the back piece for the slit, that's just what you do. You sew, you add your stay, and you bend one part. Now for the lining, like I explained earlier, I actually joined both pieces of the lining from the neckline down to the slit and following the slant ½ inch before the end of the slant. So I hope you get that. So I join from the neckline down to ½ inch before this end of the slant. So as you can see, I hem the slit of the lining with that of the back piece, just so I can know where to start and where to end. So I've already attached one part of the opening of the lining to that of the bodice, that's the back piece, and I'll be attaching the other part of the slit of the lining to that of the back piece as well. And just to show you how I'll be doing it, I'll turn it inwards. So I'll turn it inwards. I will sew from inside, just like I did for the other part. So after sewing it, I would have succeeded in joining the lining totally to the back piece, and I'll just make a half stitch like that. After joining the other part of the slit, as you can see, the vent is successfully created and everything is smoothly joined. So the next thing we'll be working on is to use a steam iron to press a steam iron, I repeat. But even before then, we'll be hemming, and our hemming will be joining the lining and the fabric on the sewing line. As we'll just use our right hand to make sure the sewing line of the lining and the sewing line of the fabric are in alignment. We use our left hand to make sure both are in alignment. Then we'll use our right hand to hem. So we'll just hem all through from that slit up until the neckline. So that's just the next task at hand now. And this is just to make sure when we are trimming, we trim perfectly. As you make sure the left hand side is the same with the right hand side and the center lines are all in alignment. So what I'll be doing now will just simply be joining the lining to the bodice with this hemming needle and thread, and all this we will be removing after we've succeeded in joining the front and the back piece. But before then, we just have to make sure we hem the slits from the down part up onto the neckline. Now I'll be showing you other videos on how to hem, because sometimes the hemming is not just for you to hem from the slit to the neckline. Sometimes you have to hem all through. Why are we hemming all through? We are hemming all through sometimes because you want to know the exact position the lining of the back piece is supposed to be joining the lining of the front piece. You don't just assume these things. These things you have to make sure that both are in alignment, or else there will be ruffles. And when there are ruffles, it is very hard for you to detect where the problem is coming from. So after this whole process, I'll be showing you a video of how I hem from the slit to the neckline, and also a cross hemming, just to make sure the sides of the lining and the fabric are also in alignment, not just the center lines. So you can decide on how to do yours, but if I'm to be fair, I will advise you to make a general hemming after you've hemmed the center line. Do the general hemming. So because it is easier for you when you do the general hemming to join the front and the back piece perfectly. That is just the secret. Perfect suit tailors don't play with hemming. They don't joke with. They use their hand needle to hem everything. Like when they hem the lining to the back piece, they hem the lining to the front piece, hem everything. So we've succeeded in hemming the center line from the slit up to the neckline. The next thing will be to trim, since we are sure of our center line. Now we'll be trimming, making sure the lining is not shorter than the fabric. If the lining is wider than the fabric, there's no problem. All you have to do is to take notes when you are joining the front and the back piece. But if the lining is shorter than the fabric, there is very serious problem. So what I'll be doing now is to trim the lining in a way that it will be half inch wider than the fabric. Now, what I usually use is a quarter inch, but just for safety purposes, I'm using half inch, because if you look at the material very well, you will see that it is not well straightened. And when a material is not well straightened, if after straightening it, it's increased in size. So that is why I'm just using half inch, because if I use my pressing iron to straighten things, I'm very sure the size of the fabric will increase. So that is why my trimming is just half inch all through. Your lining being wider is almost of no problem. The only thing is when you are working on your armhole, you just have to know what you are doing. But for other part of the suit, your lining could be wider even by 1 inch. You just have to know how to, there's a way you do it. If your lining is wider by 1 inch, it even becomes a design. You bend it inside, and maybe I'll be doing that on subsequent videos when I'm making suits. But for this, I'll just trim the downline off like that, and the next thing will be to join the back piece with the front piece. This video is basically serious. If you've not been keeping up, please check my previous videos. You will see how I started this whole process and how I got to this point. And for further videos, I'll be explaining how I finished everything off. So like I said earlier, after this process, we'll be joining the front and the back piece. Probably the video after I show you how I made my pockets will show you the final result of the joining between the back and the front piece. Thank you for watching, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed. I promise better videos are coming. Thanks. Stay blessed, all of you.